Hi everyone, I'm Michelle. For my videos, I'm going to be discussing the gendered body in two parts with emphasis on non-cisgendered bodies. There's a lot of information to go over. Let's get started. A gendered body is one that has been socially and culturally constructed in a particular way. In Western culture, I chose non-conforming bodies as my main discussion because I have a somewhat abnormal amount of cis friends, and it's important to me to get their information shared. I was lucky enough to do several interviews with my friends regarding the subject of the gendered body, and one of them shared this image with me of the genderbread person. I thought I would pass it along because it's a really cool representation of a lot of the information that I'm going to go over, and overall fun way to explain all the different aspects of a way that a person may identify or express themselves. I also want to note that it shows the two different types of attraction, sexual and romantic, which is not necessarily a part of this conversation, but still an interesting thing to take a look at. I really want to start by going over the difference between two important terms, gender and sex. It seems pretty simple, but it actually makes a huge difference in understanding certain types of bodies, and a surprising amount of adults don't realize the difference between the two.
Like, what do you mean?
What do you mean by that?
Like, how do you identify?
Like straight or gay or bisexual?
No,
or?
gender, not sexual preference.
I'm obviously a male.
I'm a girl.
A brother.
I identify with female.
I identify as male.
How do you know that you're a man?
Because I have a penis.
I got a dick, man.
Based on what's between my legs?
What do you think makes you feel like a girl?
I think I just like femininity.
My reproductive system is of a female.
I mean, it feels comfortable.
So that was just a fun clip to show the confusion that a lot of people have about the difference between the two terms from a video called WTF is Gender. It's available to view in full on the BuzzFeed Yellow YouTube channel. I highly recommend checking out the channel because they do offer a bunch of other videos where they speak to people of a non-cisgender about their experiences, which is pretty eye-opening. But let's get back to the information. So sex refers to the biological and physiological characteristics of a person, which we label as male or female. This is how we are defined at birth. Gender, however, refers to the behaviors, roles, expectations, and activities that are set by society's standards. Gender gets interesting because there is gender expression, which is the way an individual represents his or herself, so masculine or feminine. And then there's also gender identity, and this is how you as an individual would mentally identify with regards to genders. Gender identity is where you come across cisgender. This is the vast majority of people and describes a person who is not transgender. If they are born a female and grow up remaining a female, they are considered cisgender. A non-binary person is someone who does not identify with either binary gender, man or woman. They are also referred to as agender or genderless. Tyler Ford said in their article, My Life Without Gender, to me, this simply means having the freedom to exist as a person without being confined by the limits of the Western gender binary. I wear what I want to wear and I do what I want to do because it is absurd to limit myself to certain activities, behaviors, or expressions based on gender. The third major gender identity is transgender, which is defined as a person whose gender identity does not correspond to that person's biological sex assigned at birth. I also want to go over intersectionality in this video because it really helps to understand how the effects and experiences of having a non-cis body may be different or even on some levels similar to you and I. Intersectionality is a term created by Kimberly Crenshaw and is defined as the study of overlapping or intersecting social identities and related systems of oppression, domination, or discrimination. Although the term is coined by Crenshaw, the idea has been around a bit longer. Early feminists like Audre Lorde discussed really similar ideas, and in fact, one of Lorde's big quotes is, "I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own." While the quote limits itself to feminism and women, the idea is much broader than that. Intersectionality is a key term because when you're talking about overlapping areas of oppression and discrimination in our society, a main portion of that is dealing with the person's physical identity or the body. So if we look at this chart, we have the core aspects of an individual. The privileged are the top, dominating the oppressed on the bottom. And then the top of the societal hierarchy is basically a cisgender, white-skinned, able-bodied, young, attractive male. And that is going to be at least 6 physically telling characteristics that can either put you on the privileged side of things or on the oppressed side of things. Now that we've covered the general terms about gendered bodies and have a basic understanding of what everything means, I want to start going over the different whys and hows. So how are hegemonic opposing bodies being treated in our current society, and why are they treated so differently? A lot of reactions to non-cisgender bodies seem to have to do with an individual's emotions. My favorite idea shared by Sarah Ahmed was when she wrote about Descartes' theory that we do not love and hate because objects are good or bad, but rather because they seem beneficial or harmful. One of the biggest driving factors in deciding whether or not a person finds something harmful to them is fear. So after Descartes' theory, I got to thinking about what causes fear in certain people and not others. Why would one person find another human harmful or bad just because of the way that they choose to express themselves physically or how they identify? It seems mostly to be fear of what is different, or fear of the unknown. It's understandable to be fearful of something that is different. The problem comes when that fear turns into hate. It progresses even further when hate turns into violence. So I was really lucky. I got to speak to my friend Emily, who refers to herself as a woman with a transgender history. I wanted to know more about what she had experienced before, after, during her transition period. She ended up sharing a really emotional story with me that occurred kind of towards the middle, I'd say, of her transition, her complete transition, from male to female. She had gone to a bar with her friends. They were celebrating actually her recovery from her top surgery, where she had gotten breast implants. She said that she was feeling more confident than ever. She finally felt like people were treating her like the woman she always felt that she was. There was a man there who had shown interest in her, and they danced together. He bought her drinks. They talked for quite a while. He knew she was transitioning. She said that she learned early on from other friends who were transitioning and just other experiences that you want to be really forthcoming with that information, because there are situations that could turn out poorly if someone feels lied to. Later on in the evening, when everything had kind of died down, the guy's friends came over to where they were talking, and they had more drinks. They talked for a little bit, a couple minutes, not very long, before one of the guy's friends made a comment about the Adam's apple that Emily had. She hadn't had her surgery to shave it down yet. So at that point, the men began making really inappropriate, transphobic comments, and the man Emily had spent her evening with called her a liar, a pervert. He kept shouting that he wasn't a fag, and he ended the rant by throwing his beer at her and then kind of storming out of the bar with his friends. And I thought that that was bad enough. I really was like, wow, that is the worst experience I can imagine having in my life. And she kept going. So after Emily had gotten cleaned up in the bathroom, her and her friends decided obviously to leave. That was a buzzkill. They left. They didn't want to be there anymore. When they got outside into the parking lot, the guys from before had been waiting for her to come out. And then they proceeded to attack her with trash. They threw trash at her. Some of them had pulled their belts off and were beating her with their belts. There was a baseball bat she got hit with. And I was just in tears when she was telling me this. Because it's, who does that? What kind of person does that, right? So I asked her, and she was I'm sitting there crying, and she's so stoic and just unmoved by the whole situation as she's telling it. And then when I asked her why she, or how really, she could keep so calm and unemotional about her situation, she looked at me and she said, I can't believe it. She looked at me and she said she had experienced much worse when she wasn't passing. In her article, The Straight Men That Sleep with Trans Women, Diana Torje writes, there is very little support for individuals who are partnering with trans people. Society is hard on the men who date transgender individuals. There's a lot of stigma attached to it. Their sexuality is called into question.